Hey everyone, RogueGold here, and welcome back to another State of the Game recap. This is going to be for State of the Game number 165 for July 8th, 2020, and today, Hamish had Bruce Kelly and Nikki Coupons on to discuss the game's current events and the coming future updates, including some really exciting stuff for PvP, so let's get right into it. They start off with priority alerts. As always, there was a maintenance yesterday to fix bugs like getting stuck in the seasons menu, and an issue with using a shield going into a cutscene, and some more stuff like that. There will also be a maintenance tomorrow to fix the unlimited raid RPG bug, as well as some leaderboard issues tied to that. Basically, you can reload the rocket launcher right now if you use 3 pieces of True Patriot, and that is obviously not intended, and so they're going to fix that, as well as clearing the leaderboards from times that use that bug, so they got quicker times than obviously you would if you're running it regularly. Those are all going to be cleared up starting tomorrow. And also, to those who may be interested, the Division 1 global event called Strike is going to begin July 13th and last for a week if you want to go in and play that. And also, they noted that the devs are going on a summer break as they do every year, and so State of the Game will be back in a little less than a month from now on August 5th. They wasted no time getting into the developer interview, which first stated that the tentative release date for Title Update 10.1 is July 21st. They said that the goal for this is that as a smaller patch in between the major ones of TU10 and TU11. They're kind of, including some of the two-part fixes from TU10 that still need to be addressed, as well as some further bug fixes. And then this is coming before TU11, which is going to be a bigger update that's coming later. They didn't talk about it a ton today, but this is kind of the precursor to that, and is focusing on skill and PvP balance. So, the major TU10.1 patch notes, the very first thing is that the skill cooldown and loadout swapping issue has been fixed. You can now loadout swap even when your skills are on cooldown. That's awesome to hear. The issue with the Revive Hive has been very annoying in the recent weeks, and they also are making a big change to the Revive Hive, which is that they are reducing the base number of charges at skill tier 0 to 1 charge, and the cooldown from that is reduced from 240 seconds to 180. So basically, that's going to make it a lot more efficient for solo and self-revive play. You now gain 1 charge per skill tier, so at base you will have 1, and then it goes up to 7 if you're at skill tier 6, and it is a 3-minute cooldown instead of a 16-minute one when you're at tier 0, of course. So that's great, because if you're in the middle of a mission and you get revived at the end, how it is right now in TU10 is that you have to wait a whole 16 minutes for it to get back up to 4 charges, and then you can swap your loadout. But now it's just 3 minutes for that single charge to go up, and that'll be really nice, because it always took all of your charges anyway to revive yourself, so now it's going to make a lot more sense. You can either use that 1 charge to revive yourself or a teammate. It just, it's a lot simpler, makes a lot more sense, and it alleviates all of those issues we are having right now with loadout swapping, so that's really awesome to hear. And they also know that it's just always felt a little strong to them, the Revive Hive has, so now it's a lot more in line with a lot of the other things, and I kind of agree with that. I think 4 charges of it was a lot, even on the raid, it was kind of carrying a lot of people through some parts, so I think it just makes more sense, and this should be pretty good. Additionally, Foundry Bulwark is getting a nerf, and some people are going to be upset by that. I think it's justified. I'm with it, but we'll see how everyone feels about it. They're reducing the 3-piece bonus of armor regeneration from 3% to 1%. However, now you also get an increase to shield health by 50%, and this actually makes a lot of sense. They went on to explain that really they want the, precursor bonuses to the 4-piece on gear sets to really complement what the whole set is about. And Foundry Bulwark is a shield set. It's about making you and your shield as as powerful as possible so you can hold that front line. And the 3-piece right now, especially in PvP, is allowing you to be super powerful without even using a shield, and that's not what they intended. So now they want to really, promote the shield to be really strong, as well as also giving you some self-healing if you get flanked. That's what the 4-piece does, and that's what this 3-piece now encourages. So I think it's a really good change, and it should help out with a lot of the meta that we're seeing in the Dark Zone and PvP right now. The Forge named holsters also been getting increased to shield health by 50% as well. So now the combination of those two things and a lot of, blues and yellows on your build is going to make shields a lot more powerful, even in PvP. So I think this is going to be a really good change, and we'll see how that impacts everything else. And they said that also the rifle base ammo buff that was meant for TU10 should be added with 10.1, which brings it from, I believe, 280 to 420 at its base, so that's pretty good. That'll be nice for people who use rifles quite a bit. And now we move on to PvP balance, which I'm super excited for, not only because this is probably the quickest response time we've ever seen to PvP issues in, the franchise's history. If you remember back to Division 1, and Secret Mines were an issue in like 1.5 and 1.6, you'd have to wait until the next major update, until the next 1 point whatever, to get something fixed. It was ridiculous. But now, this is coming, 3-4 weeks after TU10 drops? This is fantastic. I think this response time is exactly what this game needs, and the PvP and the DZ, environment needs, and so hopefully they can keep this up. And not only is it fast, but there's some really awesome changes coming in this, so let's get right into them. Starting with AR damage for all ARs across the board in PvP has been increased by 9%. They said that right now things like SMGs and shotguns at close range are really strong, and rifles at long range are really strong, but they really want something to be in the middle there that can compete. And so ARs were a little bit below where they wanted them to be with TU10, so now they're giving them this buff, which would hopefully make them a lot more competitive. So I'm really hoping that that is the case, because ARs are my favorite, and I want them to be as competitive as possible in the PvP environment. Also, the Firestarter Chem explosion damage has been reduced by 50%. This is really good, because basically the Firestarter was kind of outperforming a lot of other skills, damaging skills and status effect skills combined, because not only did apply a really strong burn for a good length of time, I mean, it's not, as long of a burn duration as like the Airburst Seeker Mine, but it was doing the same amount of damage for like 12.5 seconds, I believe, if you really, focus in on it, and it had 8 charges, and it did an insane amount of burst damage when it first hit someone. Now that burst damage, that initial hit, is going to be reduced by 50%. They kind of explained that there's really no counter to that burst damage right now, and so this is going to just take that way down, because it's basically outperforming even, burst damage only skills like the Sticky Bomb or the Seeker Mine. So now this is going to be in line, and I think it's going to make the PvP environment a lot more healthier. I'm really excited for this change. This next one, though, is what I'm the most excited for, because this is something that I've been saying we needed for a long time. I even made a video on it a few months back, and that's that they're finally adding an immunity skill into the game. They're not really adding a new one, but they're changing the Booster Hive once more. With TU10 or TU9, one of those ones, they changed the Booster Hive to give you weapon damage and weapon handling from the speed that it gave you before. But now, while it still gives you weapon handling and I guess melee damage, they never stated that that was a thing, so it gives you those two, it also gives you hazard protection, 20% at tier 0 and 60% at tier 6. This is really, really awesome. If you guys aren't seeing the immediate, implications of that, it's going to finally give you something similar to the Immunizer support station from Division 1. It's not going to fully protect you from statuses, but if you run a little bit of hazard on your build and you have someone on your team that's running a support build that has tier 6 of this Booster Hive, it's going to make you immune from a lot of status effects. It's going to protect from burn, from bleed, from the riot foam, which we will get to in a second, but it's just going to be a super nice option, and I'm incredibly glad that they're adding this to the game. I think we've needed it for quite a long time, and I'm really glad that it's finally happening, so very, very hyped for that one. They also said that the Restorer Hive had a drone flight increase per skill tier in TU10. Basically, it went up by 5%, I think, for each skill tier. That's now going to apply to every Hive variant, including the Stinger. So when you get, higher skill tiers, those drones are going to fly even faster. For the Stinger, it's going to hit people a lot faster, and for stuff like the, newly improved Booster, the Revive Hive, all that, it's going to just get you up that much faster. That's going to be a really nice addition, and I'm excited for that one. The Striker drone is getting a 38% damage buff, which sounds alarming at first, but that's until you hear this next one, is that all deployed skills in PvP now take 4 times more damage than they currently do. So what does that mean? Things like the Striker drone, the Assault turret, the, any of the Hive variants that are on the ground, you're going to be able to kill them 4 times faster than you currently are now. At tier 0, that means they're going to die insanely fast, probably from just a few bullets, and at tier 6, it means it'll probably take, half a mag, a full mag to kill them, as opposed to the, like, 5 or 6 mags it takes right now. This is going to be a really nice change, and I think it adds some really good counters to those high skill plays, whereas, currently the EMPs are your only way to do it, and those don't always do the trick. This is going to be really nice, and I'm really excited for that one. It should create a lot healthier of an environment in PvP and the DZ. Lastly, they did talk about Riot Foam, and Bruce is saying that right now there are no apparent changes coming to it. He knows that a lot of people are frustrated by it, but he made the point that it only takes a second to break out of it if you do it. I disagree that that's, a reasonable counter, because as soon as you get stuck, as soon as you get immobilized fully, you're going to die. Like 90% of the time, I've been in the DZ these last few days. I've seen everyone using it. A total stun in a game like this with this time to kill, it just doesn't work. It's like the shock turret in Division 1. Once you get stuck, you're going to get beamed in the head and die really quickly. There's just no way. A healer can... I was playing a healer the other day. You can potentially out heal it if you time your chem launcher just right. Your chem launcher heal for that burst heal. But you shouldn't have to do that for one skill. I made the point on Twitter to Bruce that they should make it so that in PvP, not PvE, just PvP, the Riot Foam should just slow you down instead of fully immobilizing you. That way it still has value, you can still slow someone down and get a lot of damage in on them, but it isn't that really cheesy total stun. We'll see if he agrees with me. He liked the comment. Maybe we'll see some changes to that, but right now there's nothing coming to the Riot Foam for TU10.1. Alright, so now Nikki took the floor to talk about the loot changes that are coming with TU10.1. If you haven't been aware, there's been a lot lot of discussion in the community about, loot ever since TU10, as it was, said that there was going to be a lot of loot generosity fixes coming with this update. That seems to have been the case, but there are still a lot of, cases where you're getting a lot of low rolls in higher content like heroic and legendary. So that's what they want to tackle with TU10.1. And so let's see what they have planned for that. There were several different slides that went up on screen kind of, showcasing what they were talking about. So I will put those up at the same time so you guys can get an idea of what I am saying. First, they showed the loot power distribution before TU10. So this is before TU10, how the loot would drop and what kind of rolls and chances you're going to get at those certain items. And so you can pause if you need to see that. And then they showed the post TU10 power curve. And they said that the main issue here is with the green and red areas. That's kind of the two different, spectrums of where your loot is going to be at. So they want to kind of correct those. And so now they showed the TU10.1 slide, and they wanted to note that there is a secondary green area with the max rolls dropping at the highest chance. Let me kind of explain this to you if you don't understand. Basically, on the x-axis is the, roll quality of your pieces of gear. At the highest end, at the very right of that chart, is where you're going to get your god rolls. Now on the y-axis is the chance for such thing to drop. So it starts out with the lowest amount of rolls being the highest chance, and then further on, the chance reduces as those drops get better. Well, now, as opposed to the TU10 slide where it levels out evenly for the god roll, so you have an even chance to get a god roll or a roll like 70%, now it curves a bit up at the end. So you have a higher chance to get a full god roll than you do something at, 75, 80%. This is a really nice change because they kind of went on to explain that, to fully min-max your build, you're going to need to get two stats that are the correct ones at full capacity, so you can re-roll the third thing to what you want. So they really want to, increase that a little bit so you have a better chance to min-max your build. So this is a really good change, and it's going to bring a lot of generosity and just overall health to the game and the end game. And they clarify that primarily heroic and legendary are receiving these changes on the slides that I just showed you. Those are the things that they really want to focus on to get people to min-max their builds, and so that's where they're focusing these changes at. TU11 is going to bring rainbow loot changes. Basically, if you don't know, there's been discussion going on about how you can, all the time get Providence pieces that come with, obviously weapon damage is the core attribute because that's what it always comes with, and then you get like health and repair skills. And very seldom are you going to actually want those rolls because primarily you want red rolls with Providence to focus on DPS. Well, they said with TU11, basically they're going to roll focus on the item's profile. So if it's a red focused brand like Providence, there's going to be a higher chance that you're going to get red stats on the secondary attributes. So that's pretty good, but we'll learn more about that as we get closer to TU11. These two bits are pretty interesting. They said field proficiency and DZ caches are now on par with heroic loot levels. That's really nice. And the clan caches that you get once a week are now on par with legendary loot levels. That's really good, and that should add a lot more incentive for you and your clan to go out and get those caches every week. They said not for TU10.1, but likely TU11 or something in the future, the DZ loot quality increase to heroic is being looked at. This is really nice. If you don't know, right now the DZ loot quality is set at challenging, and it was at heroic when TU8 first launched. If you remember those first week or two, everyone was in the DZ. They're looking to bring it back to that level. That's going to be really awesome if that does happen, and so I'm very excited to hear some more news on that. And lastly, as far as loot goes, they just mentioned that on legendary now, extra exotic drops that aren't the bighorn will now be rewarded as exotic caches as the end reward instead. That gets rid of the frustration of getting an exotic that you don't want from that final boss. So if you were to get, I don't know, a chatterbox from the last boss of a legendary and you're like, oh, I got the bighorn, you run up and it's not, and you get really disappointed. Well, now they're going to take that away and just add it as an end reward as an exotic cache, so you don't feel that disappointment if you don't see a red, drop on the boss. So that should be pretty nice and just alleviate some of that frustration. So that closed out all of the loot talks, and then they moved on to just some general stuff to close out the stream. The Hollywood Global event is on right now, and they did some coverage and explanation of the gameplay of that. We don't really need to go into that. You can find it in game. And they showed the Phoenix Down apparel event outfits that are going to be coming. That's going to be running from July 14th to August 3rd starting next Tuesday. And so I will put those pictures up now and just scroll through them. You can pause if you want to look at one of them in more detail. They're not super exciting. I like the Agent Ann one with that hood and that jacket. That looks pretty cool, but the rest, we'll have to see them in game. I'm not super hyped for it, so we'll see how that goes. And they said next week is the Luna Manhunt target. And they just put some slides up showing the objectives and rewards for her and both Huntsmen, because they won't have another State of the Game until August 5th when that one is already out. So they just want to preview and show that. Alright guys, that's going to do it for this week's State of the Game recap. Like I said earlier, the PvP stuff coming in 10.1 is fantastic, and the speed at which they're addressing these issues is stellar. I really hope that's a trend that they can continue with into the future. Additionally, the loot stuff should be great too, and I'm very anxious to hear when we might see the DZ return to heroic loot quality. That's going to be a great day indeed. That's all for this this recap though, guys. Thank you all very much for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and be sure to subscribe with notifications on so you can be updated every time I upload. Head down to the comments and let me know all of your thoughts on these announced changes. I'm very interested to hear how my PvP crowd feels about this stuff. Other than some upset Foundry users, I think everyone should be pretty happy. These are some really great changes. I'll leave it there though, everyone. Have a great day, stay safe out there, and until the next one, guys, RogueGold out.